The briefing room smelled like recycled air and old decisions. General Vor Casson sat at the head of the long table, his scales catching the blue light from the display screens. Around him, 12 senior officers waited for him to speak. He did not speak. He was looking at a number. 12,000. Such a small number. The Dominion had ruled 1,000-star systems for 600 years. They had fought wars that killed billions. 12,000 was nothing. A clerical note, a line in a budget report. The operation was a complete success, said Commander Yeel, pulling up the tactical display. The planet rotated slowly on the screen. It was gray now. It had been green and blue 3 days ago. Kepler 442b has been cleared for Dominion settlement. Human resistance was minimal. Voreth repeated. The word felt strange in his mouth. They had no orbital defense. Yeel continued. No fleet presence, just surface settlements, farmers mostly, some scientists. The plasma bombardment lasted 4 hours. 4 hours. Voreth had been eating dinner 4 hours ago. He had been listening to music, human music, though no one knew about that particular habit. A woman singing about a place called Tennessee. He did not know where Tennessee was. He suspected it no longer existed. Casualties, he asked. 12,047. Yeel said. All enemy combatants neutralized. They were farmers. Yeel blinked. Sir, you said they were farmers and scientists. Voreth leaned back in his chair. When did farmers become enemy combatants? The room went quiet. Officers looked at their displays, at their hands, at anything except Voreth. Standing orders, sir, Yale said carefully. Any species that refuses to surrender territory is classified as hostile. The humans were given 14 days to evacuate. They refused. They refused to leave their homes. Yes, sir. Voreth looked at the gray planet on the screen. 12,000 people had woken up on that world. They had eaten breakfast. They had gone to work. They had made plans for dinner, for the weekend, for next year. None of them would see next year. He closed his eyes by the cold stars. He was getting old. War was mathematics. He had believed that for 400 years. You added up the numbers. You calculated the acceptable losses. You made the cold equations balance. But humans did something strange. They named their dead. Every single one. He had read that in an intelligence report once. It had bothered him then. It bothered him now. What is the human response? He asked. Lieutenant Crix, the intelligence officer, pulled up a new display. Scattered protests on their home world. Their governments have issued formal complaints through diplomatic channels. Their news networks are covering the event extensively. Their military response. None, sir. The humans have no unified fleet. Their nation-states maintain separate forces, but they are currently engaged in 3 different conflicts with each other. Crix allowed himself a small smile. They are too busy fighting themselves to fight us. A junior officer at the far end of the table laughed. 12,000 dead, and they sent a formal complaint. These creatures are pathetic. More laughter. Voreth did not laugh. His aide, a young officer named Fesson, did not laugh either. Fesson had studied human history at the academy. He had written a paper on something called the Second World War. Vorath had never read it. He was starting to think he should have. Lieutenant Fessin, Vorath said, you studied the humans. What is your assessment? Fessin went pale. His scales shifted from green to gray. In Dominion biology, that meant fear. Sir, he stopped, swallowed. The humans are a young species, pre-unified, still learning to cooperate on a planetary scale. And they have a concept, sir. They call it righteous anger. Fessin's voice was barely a whisper. When someone hurts them badly enough, they stop fighting each other. They focus on the thing that hurt them. The junior officer snorted. So they will focus on us with what? Farming equipment. Fessin did not answer. He was staring at his display. The color had drained from his face. Entirely. Fessin, Vorath said, Sir, there is an update from intelligence. The room waited. All human governments have ceased. Internal conflicts. Fessin looked up. His eyes were wrong. Not afraid anymore, something worse. 17 hours ago, every nation-state on Earth announced a suspension of hostilities. Every military force has been recalled to their home world. Silence. 17 hours, Vorath said quietly. News of Kepler 442b. Reached Earth 17 hours ago. Yes, sir. Vorath stared at the display. He thought about his music files, about the woman singing about Tennessee, about a species that named their dead. Every single one. The junior officer laughed again, but it sounded hollow now. So they stopped fighting, so what? They have no fleet, no weapons. What are they going to do? Send us a strongly worded letter. No one answered him. Vorath stood. The room stood with him. Double the patrols on the border. Systems, he said, I want daily reports from all listening posts. And Lieutenant Fessin, Sir, send me everything you have on human warfare, everything. He walked out of the briefing room. The door hissed shut behind him. He stood in the corridor for a long moment, alone with the hum of the ship's engines. 17 hours. A species that had been killing each other for their entire history, that had never agreed on anything, that could not even decide on a single language or government or religion. They had unified in 17 hours. By the cold stars. What had they done? 3 months of nothing. General Vorath Kassin stood at the observation window of his command ship, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the border, systems, human space waited silent. Empty. The listening posts reported the same thing every day. No transmissions, no ship movements, no military activity of any kind. Just static and silence, and one phrase, repeated on every frequency in 7,000 human languages. We are counting. That was all. 3 words, no demands, no threats, no declarations of war. Just counting. Dominion High Command had relaxed. The Supreme Commander himself had sent a message of congratulations. The human problem had solved itself. Clearly, the young species had collapsed into grief and chaos. Their brief moment of unity had broken. They were probably back to killing each other by now. The expansion would continue. He could not sleep. Every night he sat in his quarters and read. He had requested every Dominion file on human history, every intelligence report, every cultural analysis. He read until his eyes burned and his scales ached. What he found kept him awake. The humans had fought a war once. They called it the Second World War. It had lasted 6 years. 60 million dead. 60 million of their own kind. Killed in a conflict over territory and ideology. But that was not the part that disturbed Voreth. The part that disturbed him was how it ended. A nation called the United States had built a weapon, a single bomb that could destroy an entire city. They had dropped it on a place called Hiroshima. 80,000 people gone in a flash of light. 3 days later, they dropped another one, and the war ended. Voreth read about the firebombing of Tokyo. 100,000 civilians burned alive in a single night. He read about a strategy called total war. He read about a concept called unconditional surrender. The humans had burned their own cities to ash. They had killed millions of their own people. And when it was over, they had rebuilt everything in 20 years. They were not a species that gave up. They were a species that got ready. General. Voreth turned. Fesson stood in the doorway, looking tired. Neither of them had slept well in 3 months. What is it? The Supreme Commander is demanding an update on the human situation. He wants to know why you are still requesting additional patrols. Voreth turned back to the window. Tell him the humans are preparing. Preparing for what, sir? Our intelligence shows no military buildup. No fleet construction, no weapons development. Our intelligence is wrong. Fesson hesitated. Sir, with respect, we have sensors throughout their space. We would detect any significant activity. Would we? Voreth picked up a data pad from his desk. The humans built nuclear weapons in less than 4 years. They did it in secret. Their own people did not know until the bombs fell. He set the pad down. They called the project Manhattan. 200,000 workers, 3 years complete. Secrecy. That was primitive technology, sir. We would detect. We detected nothing on Kepler 442b. 12,000 people lived there, farms, children's schools. Voreth's voice was quiet. We knew nothing about them until we killed them. Fesson said nothing. The humans are quiet, Voreth continued. They are not broken, they are not grieving, they are working. He turned to face his aide. Do you know what humans call the period before a counterattack? Fesson shook his head. They call it getting their house in order. Somewhere in the ship, an engine hummed, normal routine, the sound of everything being fine. Fesson's communicator chirped. He looked at it. His scales went gray. Sir, perimeter station Theta has stopped transmitting. Voreth felt something cold move through his chest. When? 4 minutes ago. No distress signal, no weapons fire detected. The station just went silent. Get me a visual. They walked to the command center. Officers scrambled to their stations. Screens flickered with data. Somewhere an alarm was beeping. Bringing up the Theta sector now. Someone said. The main display showed empty space. Stars, darkness. The station should have been there, a bright point of light. Transmitting status reports every 30 seconds like it had for the past 50 years. Nothing. Scanning for debris, another officer called out. No wreckage detected, no energy signatures. It is like the station was never there. Voreth stared at the empty space where 300 Dominion soldiers had lived 12 minutes ago. Sir, contact A ship emerged from the darkness, small. Outdated human, it is broadcasting. Sir. On screen. The audio filled the command center. Human voice, female comm speaking. The Dominion language, accented but clear. Sarah Chen, age 34, botanist, Kepler 442b. A pause, Marcus Williams, age 7. Student, Kepler 442b. Another pause. Yuki Tanaka, age 61, retired teacher. Kepler 442b. On and on, name after name, 12,000. Names, the ship was broadcasting them on. Loop, every frequency, every language. The humans were still counting, and now they had started collecting, sir. Fessin whispered, "What do we do?" Voreth watched the small human ship drift through space where a Dominion station had stood for 50 years, one ship, alone, broadcasting the names of the dead like a prayer. "We prepare," he said, "because they are finished getting there. House in order." He turned to his officers, their faces were pale, their scales were gray. "And they are coming, 200 Dominion warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, General Voreth Kessian watched from the command deck of the flagship, his claws gripping the railing. The human fleet waited for them. 40 ships, old designs, outdated weapons. Some of them looked like they had been pulled from museums. One vessel was broadcasting music, something loud with drums and screaming vocals. Commander Yeel laughed. "This is their great counterattack, 40 ships against 200. Voreth said nothing. He was watching the human formation. They were not retreating. They were not spreading out. They were flying directly toward the Dominion fleet in a tight wedge. "Open a channel," Voreth said, "sir. Open a channel to the human fleet." The communications officer hesitated, then complied. Static filled the bridge. "Human vessels, this is General Vor Cassian of the Dominion Third Fleet. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now and you will be treated according to..." A human voice cut him off. Male comm, almost bored. "General, we know who you are. We know what you did." A pause. "We are here to collect." The channel went dead. "Sir, the human ships are accelerating." Voreth watched the tactical display. The 40 human ships were not slowing down. They were speeding up, flying straight into the teeth of 200 warships like they did not know what death was. All ships opened fire. The space between the fleets turned. White plasma missiles, energy beams. The Dominion had the best weapons in the galaxy. They had conquered 1,000 worlds with those weapons. The human ships kept coming. Direct hit on the lead vessel. Their shields are down. The lead human ship, burning and broken, did not retreat. It accelerated into the Dominion formation and rammed the cruiser Vexen at full speed. Both ships disappeared in a ball of fire. By the cold stars, someone whispered. Second human vessel is on a collision course with the dreadnought Calyx. Destroy it. They hit it with everything they had. The human ship's engines died. Its hull was cracked open to space. It was a dead ship drifting through the void. And then its emergency thrusters fired. The pilot was still alive. Still steering, still aiming. The Calyx tried to turn, too slow. The human ship hit it amidships at 3,000 ms. Voreth watched his tactical display turn red, ship after ship vanishing. The humans were not fighting like soldiers. Soldiers wanted to survive. soldiers had. Families and futures and reasons too. Live. These humans flew like they were already dead. We have recovered audio from one of the human vessels. Play it. The bridge fell silent. A woman's voice filled the room. She was singing. The ship around her was burning. And she was singing a children's song, something about a river and a boat and gentle dreams. She was still singing when our ship hit the dreadnought Vorn. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 197 Dominion ships were gone. Debris and bodies floated in the silence of space. 3 human ships limped away into the darkness, still broadcasting the names of the dead. Voreth sat in his command chair. Around him his officers wept, screamed, stared at nothing. Commander Yiel approached him. The commander's hands were shaking. Sir, what are they? Voreth thought about the woman singing, about the pilot who had steered a dead ship into a dreadnought, about 40 vessels flying into 200 without hesitation. They are humans, he said quietly, but they throw their lives away like they do not throw them away. Voreth stood, his legs felt weak. They spend them. There is a difference. I do not understand. Voreth pulled up his intelligence files, found the concept he had been looking for, a human phrase, acceptable losses. Every species had one. The Dominion's acceptable loss ratio was 15%. Above that you retreated, you regrouped, you lived to fight another day. Humans have a concept, Voreth said. They call it acceptable losses. It is the percentage of their force they are willing to sacrifice to achieve victory. What is theirs? 20%, 30%. Voreth turned to face his commander. The answer tasted like ash. All of them. The bridge was silent. They will spend every life they have, and they will keep counting what they are owed. Voreth walked to the observation window. Debris floated past. Human Dominion. Impossible to tell the difference now. We did not start a war, Commander. We started a blood debt. And humans always collect. His communicator chirped, an intelligence update. He read it twice, 3 times. Sir, Yiel asked, what is it? The human fleet. Voreth's voice was hollow. It is no longer 40 ships. How many? 4,000. Yiel made a sound like something breaking. They built them in 3 months. Every factory on their planet, every shipyard. In their system, workers sleeping in shift. Some of them worked themselves to death and were replaced within the hour. Voreth set down the communicator. They have a phrase for this. They call it the arsenal of democracy. He looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 4,000 human ships were moving toward Dominion space. 4,000 ships filled with people who are not afraid to die. General, Yiel whispered, what do we do? Voreth thought about the woman singing. As her ship burned, we start counting our own dead, he said, because they are just getting started. The Dominion homeworld had not seen a full military conclave in 1,200 years. The last one had been during the Hark Rebellion, when a slave species had tried to overthrow their masters. The Hark no longer existed. General Voreth Kessin sat in the great chamber and watched the Supreme Commander pace. Around them, every admiral and general in the Dominion waited in silence. The walls were covered with battle honors, flags from conquered worlds, weapons from defeated enemies. None of Them meant anything now. We will offer territory, the Supreme Commander said. The humans can have the outer systems, 12 planets, enough to rebuild their lost colony 10 times. Over. No one spoke. We will offer reparations, minerals, technology, whatever they want. The Supreme Commander stopped pacing. We will even offer an apology, a formal acknowledgement of regret. Still silence. Well, the Supreme Commander's voice cracked. Does anyone have a better suggestion? Voreth looked at the tactical display on the far wall. Red dots, thousands of them, human ships moving through Dominion space like a slow tide of blood. They had lost 6 more fleets, 87 colony worlds had gone dark. The humans did not occupy them, did not loot them, they simply arrived, destroyed every military installation, and left. And they kept broadcasting names. The human diplomatic vessel has arrived, and aid announced. They are requesting permission to land. 1 ship, the Supreme Commander asked. 1 ship, 1 passenger. The Supreme Commander looked at Voreth. General, you know more about these creatures than anyone. What do they want to? Voreth thought about the woman singing, about the pilots who steered dead ships into living targets, about a species that unified in 17 hours. I do not know, he said honestly, but I do not think it is territory. The human ambassador walked into the great chamber 20 minutes later. She was small, gray hair, calm hands. She wore a simple black suit with no decorations except a single pin on her collar. A small circle, 12,000 tiny names etched around its edge. She was carrying a document. I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez, she said. Her voice was soft, clear. I represent the United Earth government. The Supreme Commander straightened too. His full height, he was 3 times her size. His scales were the deep purple of royalty. His claws could crush her skull with a single squeeze. She did not look impressed. Ambassador, we are prepared to discuss terms. The Supreme Commander gestured to the document in her hands. Is that your proposal? No. She walked to the central table and set the document down. This is not a proposal. This is not a negotiation. She looked up at the Supreme Commander. This is an invoice. The Supreme Commander picked up the document. Voreth watched his face as he read it. The color drained from his scales, purple to gray to white. This is. The Supreme Commander's voice was barely a whisper. This is a list of names. 2,347 names, the ambassador said. Every officer who authorized the Kepler 442b strike, every ship captain who fired, every bureaucrat who approved the order. The chamber erupted, officers shouting, generals rising from their seats, voices overlapping in outrage. You want us to hand over our own people? This is insane. We will never. Quiet. The ambassador did not raise her voice. She did not need to. The room fell silent. We do not want your territory. We do not want your resources. We do not want your apology. She looked at the Supreme Commander. We want justice. The Supreme Commander set down the document. His claws were trembling. And if we refuse? The ambassador smiled. It was a small smile. Polite, it did not reach her eyes. Then we keep counting. She reached into her jacket and placed a second document on the table. This is a list of every Dominion colony. within striking range of our current fleet positions. She tapped the paper with one finger. Population totals included. We have gotten very good at math. Supreme Commander. Voreth looked at the list. 37 colony. World, 400 million Dominion citizens. You would kill 400 million people. The Supreme Commander asked for 12,000. You killed 12,000 for farmland. The ambassador's voice was ice. We will kill 400 million for justice. And then we will keep going, name by name, until the debt is paid or until there is nothing left to collect from. She leaned forward. We do not want your empire. We do not want your submission. We want 2,347 people standing in a human courtroom, answering for what they did. She paused. Give them to us and this ends. Refuse and we will burn everything you have built until there is nothing left but ashes and memory. The room was silent. Voreth watched the Supreme Commander, the ruler of 1,000 star systems, the inheritor of 600 years of conquest, the most powerful being in the known galaxy. He was looking at a human female half his size. She was still smiling, still calm, still waiting. 11 seconds passed. The Supreme Commander looked away first. Leave us, he said quietly. We will consider your terms. The ambassador nodded. She picked up her documents and walked toward the door. At the threshold she paused. You have 72 hours, she said. After that we start counting again. The door closed behind her. No one spoke. Voreth looked at the battle honors on the walls, the flags from conquered worlds, the weapons from defeated enemies. None of them had ever asked for justice. None of them had ever made the Dominion afraid. The Supreme Commander sat down heavily. He looked old, tired, beaten. General Voreth, he said, begin preparing the transfer documents. Sir, we are going to give them what they want. The Supreme Commander stared at the table where the ambassadors' documents had been. All 2,347 of them. Voreth nodded slowly. And if our people resist? The Supreme Commander laughed. It was not a happy sound. Then they can explain to the humans why they deserve special treatment. We are done fighting this war, General. We lost it the moment we touched that colony. Voreth thought about the woman singing as her ship burned. The Supreme Commander was right. They had lost this war 12,000 deaths ago. The trials lasted 3 years. General Voreth Kessin watched every single one. He sat in his quarters on a quiet moon, far from Dominion space, and he watched humans put his people on trial for crimes against their species. 2,347 defendants. Each one received their own hearing. Each one faced their accusers. The families of the dead sat in the courtroom galleries holding photographs of people who would never come home. The humans broadcast everything, every testimony, every verdict, every sentencing. They translated the proceedings into 100 Dominion dialects so that everyone could understand. Most of the defendants received prison sentences, life imprisonment on human worlds where they would work, eat, and sleep among the species they had tried to destroy. 17 were executed. The humans did that publicly too. No torture, no spectacle, just a quiet room, a medical injection, and a name read aloud before the end. The same name that had been on the Ambassadors list, the same name that would be carved into a memorial on Kepler 442b. When it was over, the humans went home. They did not occupy Dominion territory. They did not demand tribute or submission. They did not install puppet governments or strip resources from conquered worlds. They simply left. The galaxy watched in confusion. The Dominion had lost. They had surrendered their own people to alien courts. They had bent their knee to a species that had been farming dirt 50 years ago. And the humans wanted nothing but to go home. Vorath understood. It took him years. But he understood. The humans had not fought for territory. They had not fought for power or resources or revenge. They had fought for balance. 12,000 dead. 2,347 held accountable. The scales were even. The debt was paid. That was all they had ever wanted. Vorath retired from the Dominion military 6 months after the trials ended. He moved to a small world on the edge of known space and began to write. His paper was called The Nature of Humanity, a study in applied justice. It took him 4 years to complete. When he published it, the Dominion Academy rejected it immediately. Too sympathetic to the enemy, they said. Too dangerous. But copies spread anyway. Officers passed them in secret. Cadets downloaded them on private channels. Within a decade, it was required reading at every military academy in the galaxy. Not because the Dominion wanted it. Taught because everyone needed to understand. The paper's thesis was simple. Vorath had spent his entire life believing that war was mathematics, numbers and resources, and acceptable losses. The side with the bigger fleet won. The side with more soldiers survived. Humans did not fight that way. Humans had a concept that no other species possessed. They called it justice, not revenge, not conquest, not survival. Justice. They believed that wrong actions required consequences, that the dead deserved answers, that pain had to be balanced with accountability, and they would burn the galaxy to ash to make the scales even. Not for territory, not for power, not for themselves, for the principle of the thing. Vorath died on a quiet evening, 80 years after the war ended. His aide found his final journal entry the next morning. We made a mistake. We looked at the humans and saw a young species, weak, divided, fighting themselves over scraps of land and ideology. We did not understand. They fight each other because they can afford to, because they are strong enough to survive their own conflicts, because their wars make them harder, sharper, more dangerous. When something external threatens them, when something kills their children, destroys their homes, names itself their enemy, they stop, they count their dead, and they come for you together. Every single one. We thought we were predators. We had ruled 1,000 worlds. We had crushed 100 species. We had never lost a war. We had never faced humans. Now we know the truth. There are predators in this galaxy, and there are humans. Learn the difference. 100 years after the war, a young Dominion officer named Kella sat in a military history class. The instructor was old, a veteran of the border conflicts, a student of Vorath's writings. Today we study the human war, the instructor said. Can anyone tell me why no species has attacked human space since the Kepler conflict? No one raised a hand. The instructor pulled up a recording, an old file, grainy and worn. A human woman with gray hair and calm hands standing in a Dominion Council chamber. We have gotten very good at math, the recording said. The instructor paused the playback. The humans are not aggressive, they do not want war, they do not seek conquest or expansion. They are content to farm their worlds and raise their children and live there. Small lives. She looked at the cadets. But they remember, they name their dead. Every single one. And if you give them a reason. She let the silence stretch. They will count what they are owed and they will collect. No matter how long it takes, no matter how many of them die. No matter what it costs. Kella raised her hand. Instructor, what should we do if we encounter humans? The instructor smiled. It was not a happy smile. Trade with them, talk with them. Learn their music and their stories and their strange little customs. She turned off the recording. Make them your friends, make them your partners, make them anything except your enemies. And if we fail, the instructor thought about Vorlag's writings about a woman singing as her ship burned, about 12,000 names, broadcast on loop across the stars. Then pray to whatever gods you believe in, she said quietly. Because the humans do not forgive, they do not forget. She looked at the cadets, young faces, eager faces, faces that had never known war. They balanced the scales, she said. Always. Kalla looked at the frozen image of the human ambassador on the screen, a small woman, gray hair, calm hands. The most terrifying thing she had ever seen. Class dismissed, the instructor said. Remember the lesson. Kalla would remember it for the rest of her life.